transmitted.
Hey, all you goobers!
It's the best sports talk anywhere.
Let's listen to
Back to Joe Raineri on 640 Sports.
Welcome back in. Happy Wednesday. Middle of the week. Craziness thus far in the world of sports. That's what it's been. Joe Raineri, 640 Sports. Top of the hour. Can't believe it's that time of year again. But it absolutely is. Ricky O'Donnell, SB Nation basketball writer, NBA writer, who was at the Chicago game last night, along with the President of the United States, who couldn't find time to make it over to the World Series. Apparently, the start of the Chicago Bulls season against the Cleveland Cavaliers was more important. Boy, how times have changed. But we'll talk to him coming up at the top of the hour. But I do want to bring in Gary Tushek and Paul Priore. They are the gentlemen behind the book, Abused by the Yankees. And guys, I want to thank you so very much for stopping by once again.
Thanks for having us, Joe. This is Gary.
Hey, Gary.
Hi, this is Paul. Thanks again for having us.
Not a problem. And it's interesting. I was explaining to the listeners that last week you guys had sent over, it's a year anniversary of the book, and you guys had sent over a audio recording, a little over 10 minutes long, along with a copy of a transcript of some of the things that were on the tape. And again, the recording wasn't, the best. It's not like what you can get now, due to the fact that when did this exactly take place? Are we talking early 90s? Is that when this was?
Yes, correctly.
Okay, so it's interesting. The company that did the transcribing is a very well-known company, a very well-known national company that does this type of stuff. And one of the questions that I keep getting is that how did we determine whose voices that we are hearing on here? Because I didn't hear anybody actually say, hey, this is Jeff Nelson, hey, this is Bob Wickman. Maybe you can speak to that, guys.
Well, the reason that I know who the voices are because I was there when it happened, and since I was around these guys on a daily basis, it was easier for me to identify those voices.
And the stuff that's on this transcript, I've got to tell you guys, I mean, the book and all, some of it is absolutely shocking. There was obviously, according to the recordings in this transcript, there was... I don't know what to say, Paul. Some people might listen to it and read the transcript and think that, maybe they were just joking around with you. But I don't know. You read into this and you're going, there was quite a bit of abuse going on here.
Yes, correctly. Yes, there was. And it was very upsetting to me, the way they treated me, because I was the only one they were directing that towards. There was nobody else they were doing that to, such as other ball players. And it was very hurtful. It really was. And I had to bite my tongue a lot and tolerate it, just so that I wouldn't have to, let people know about my sexuality at that time.
It seems, and Paul Priore, Gary Tushek, the authors of Abused by the Yankees, are joining us. It would seem that reading through these transcripts that Bob Wickman and Jeff Nelson were two individuals that had a very big issue with you and your sexuality. Am I understating that, overstating that?
No, you're saying it correctly. They were the big instigators.
And as I'm reading through the transcripts, listening to the tapes, it also appears that there was a moment on the tape where you got pretty much hurt there. What happened with that?
Well, what was going on that day is that the two of them were acting very, very strange for themselves. They were, they were almost like psychotic. They were popping pills and just acting really wild. And I was down picking up the dirty uniforms because the players had a tendency to throw things all over the place. I'm not sure if you and your audience are familiar with the way a locker room is and how these guys are, but they tend to be very messy, and they just throw anything and everything wherever they felt like it. So I was down picking up the uniforms while the two of them were talking about football plays. And then all of a sudden, they just come slamming into me. And as I was getting up, and order to prevent myself from losing my balance, I was going around in a circle, trying to keep myself up. And being that I'm not a big type guy, I'm a very small-framed kind of guy, and these guys are a lot bigger than I am. When they body slammed me, I ended up going into several lockers and chairs until eventually I ended up falling into the lockers by grabbing onto things. And I ended up getting hurt. And what was upsetting the most with that is that everybody that I complained about and people that witnessed it, nobody seemed to be concerned about the fact that I got hurt. They didn't even care that these guys just, without reason or provocation, just decided to run into me.
It also, on the tape, you could hear it, and it's also written in a transcript that Gene Monahan, the trainer for the Yankees, been there 1,000 years. He was one of these individuals that just kind of shrugged off what had happened to you like no big deal, if I'm reading that correctly.
Correctly, yes. And the thing is that he's considered management, all right? It was his duty, as well as anybody else, to have reported the incident. But like he said on the tape, had this been a situation that happened from one ball player to another, it would have been taken a lot seriously. But because I was a subordinate worker, nobody seemed to care. It's just like they didn't care if I got hurt or anything. All they were worried about is keeping everything hush-hush. And to me, that's just despicable behavior from anybody, whether you're an athlete or an average person. It's still wrong. And I did nothing to, ask for this to happen. And like I said, Gene Monahan and Steve Donahue being management, they had the opportunity and the right to go upstairs to the, offices and complain to the general manager and assistant general manager, and they did nothing, as well as everybody else in that organization that I made aware of it.
Paul Priore, Gary Tushek are joining us here, authors of Abused by the Yankees. We're talking about a audio recording that you guys were nice enough to send to us here, and also a copy of the transcripts that you guys had done. And I know there are people that are asking, saying, listen, man, if you've held on to this, why now? Why are you just starting to release these transcripts and the audio recordings? Why now, of all times?
I'll take that one.
I can answer that one, Gary.
Okay, go ahead.
The thing is that I've had these tapes for about 2 decades now. And the reason I started recording things is because I eventually wanted to write a book. And I said to myself one day, if I wrote a book without any type of proof, people wouldn't believe me. So I said, let me start recording things. Now, I was unaware that a lot of this stuff was going to happen. I just happened to be lucky that I was able to get a lot of these things on tape, unbeknownst to them. Now, when I was let go from the Yankee organization on August 1st of 1997, their excuse after they went ahead and made up all these false allegations of thievery, when I complained to the newspapers about it, the Yankees organization's response was that I was let go for performance and conduct. Never once did they ever mention thievery. That came years later when I initiated, when I had started my lawsuit in 1998. During the time when we were going through the depositions, I had about 3, and then they had their opportunity to be deposed. It was only after when we got to their depositions that they came up with this ridiculous story of thievery. Now,
did you provide them during a deposition, Paul? Did you provide them a copy of these tapes? Did you say, really, I'm thievery? I mean, look at what these guys did to me. I mean, there's a number of lines here that can be heard on the tape that you're telling me it was Mariano Rivera and Doc Gooden. A lot of very homophobic comments, a lot of slurs, a lot. Even at one point during the tape, they were offering to actually buy your silence. I mean, did you just release this to the Yankees and say, you're kidding me, right? I'm not lying here.
No, see, what happened was that when I had started the initial lawsuit, as anybody that has ever sued or been sued, there is what you call a discovery process. And what that basically entails is that any and all evidence that's relevant to your case, you must produce. okay, not only to your attorney but to the opposing attorneys. I was ordered by the judge that I had to turn over these things, which my attorneys had in their presence. Now, the attorneys for the defendants, Yankees and the players that I mentioned in my lawsuit, they have the opportunity to listen to these tapes and read the handwritten transcripts that I transcribed everything that was said word for word and identified who was on those tapes. When they heard this stuff and they found out how damaging this was, of course, they would have to go back to Steinbrenner and Company and let them know.
Mm-hmm.
That is when the Yankee organization and Steinbrenner did everything in their power to try to prevent this case from going to court. Now, they also offered me a settlement, which went up to a seven-figure thing, and I was not in this for the money. This was only to get justice, which is what I've wanted since day one, and I still maintain today. When they knew that they couldn't buy me out of this lawsuit, that's when they had to find every and all ways that they can get out of this lawsuit. And you see, what people don't understand is that, okay, today, presently, there are protection rights for gay people and same-sex people in the private sector. But back then, when I had my original lawsuit back in 1998, there was no laws on the books that had any protection for same-sex or gay people in the private sector. It was only starting to come into the public sector, such as the New York City Council and other offices that were publicly controlled by elected officials. So they were able, since they couldn't buy me out of this thing, and they knew that these tapes would be very damaging to them if they had to go to court on this thing, they ended up finding a loophole in the law under New York City and New York State that mirrored one another, and they were able to use that loophole as a way out of the lawsuit.
So I understand this. Paul Priore, Gary Tushek, the authors of Abused by the Yankees, joining us. They did offer you a settlement. They offered you somewhere in the area of seven figures. You refused. That is when things started to go the other way. The Yankees started to do whatever they could to discredit you and go down that path. I mean, this is only one tape here. Paul, how many other tapes are there, and what else is on these tapes? Because this is pretty disturbing stuff here.
Well, I have a total of 548 of microcassette tapes, which have different events on there. A lot of the things that are in there that they have are the gambling, the drinking, what they call a kangaroo court, outbursts.
Who is the gambling with exactly? Who on these tapes can you actually hear gambling or talking about gambling?
Well, there was a bat boy. I don't know if I can mention his name on him, and I don't care either way. I can mention his name if that's not a problem for you. But there's a bat boy by the name of Joey. Oh, damn, I can't think of his name.
Joey Lee.
Yes, Joey Lee, yes. And his father and my father were very good friends because the two of them had liked horse racing. Well, Joey Lee ended up being a bat boy for the New York Yankees for a period of 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And being that he was a very big gambler, he had a way to, place bets, not only with the off-track betting, but also through bookies. And he also was very good with cards and stuff like that. And him and other bat boys and off-duty police officers that were still in uniform that were on the clock, but they were considered off-duty when the game was over, would be playing, in the clubhouse, and then any other various ball players that were around that particular day, because it happened on a daily basis, so it varies from player to player. And they would be gambling for, start off with a small amount of money, and it would go up the thing. And then, of course, the situations would get very heated, and then they would be arguing and accusing each other of cheating and stuff like that.
And you have tapes of this on there. You have tapes of, for instance, Joe Torre talking about gambling. You have all of this that you're sitting on, some over 500 of them at this point, and you just released this one to us, which, we thank you for. But, again, a year. Gary, let me ask you, why after a year after the book are you just starting now to release these tapes?
Well, you mentioned it before we came on the air. They've had a whole year to sue us, and they haven't. And we checked with legal counsel, and we said, can we start releasing these tapes now? And he said, well, since nobody's suing, why not?
And you haven't heard from Bob Wickman. I mean, these transcripts, You've got Bob Wickman, Jeff Nelson. You have Mariano Rivera in here, along with Doc Gooden, prying into Paul Priore's sexuality and commenting on his situations here. But none of these guys have ever hired an attorney to quiet you or say absolutely not. Nothing like that.
That's correct. We know of reporters who have tried to reach these guys, not just us. I've sent them stuff, and they've ignored it. But reporters have contacted them. They have all the contact information. We know that these guys have been contacted, and they're remaining silent. What does that tell you? They're guilty. They don't want to admit anything.
So can we anticipate that more of these tapes you guys will start saying, okay, now that, now that obviously you guys are not suing me, you're not coming after me, so why am I holding on to these? Can we anticipate that you will start releasing more of these tapes as time moves on here?
Definitely.
Okay, well, it's interesting. Now, you guys don't mind it. Yeah, yes, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to say one more thing, if I may, before I didn't mean to cut you off. Like I said, going back to the discovery process where my attorneys and, of course, defendant attorneys were allowed to hear these things. Now, despite the fact that those attorneys for the opposing defendants, such as the Yankees and the players, they were more than aware of the contents on these tapes because they were able to read the handwritten transcripts of what was recorded on those tapes. Despite the fact that they knew what was on there, when they were being deposed by my attorneys, I like to point out, and I'm saying this on air without any doubt, that they outright lied through their teeth and claimed that they had no knowledge that I was gay and that all this other nonsense. And if you read their transcripts, you can compare it with the tapes. So basically, they put themselves in a legal situation that if they were to even consider suing today, now, as anybody knows, even though my lawsuit has been over for 2 decades now, any initial lawsuit that anybody would start today all becomes fair game. So that means all of their lies and everything that's on the tapes will come back to haunt them.
So you're telling me that there's more for them to lose at this point by initiating any sort of lawsuit moving forward than they're better off just laying it lie and not get involved in it. And I'm wondering if you don't guys mind here that I'm sure there's some listeners here that would love to read these transcripts and hear the audio tape that you sent. You guys don't mind if I make this available to the listeners on our website, do you?
No, I have no problem with it. I'm sure Gary doesn't either.
Yeah, we're just going to warn them. There's, as you've said, there's a lot of profanity there. I mean, if they're willing to put up with that, I mean, we didn't want to post it on our website just in case kids got to hear it. Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal, you know?
Yeah. It's definitely not safe for work.
Yeah, it's not safe for work, but we're going to go ahead because, listen, folks a lot of people, you know this, Gary, you know this, Paul, a lot of people are just going to shrug it off. They're going to call you crazy. They're going to call you every name in the book, but, quite honestly, it's I'd rather them listen to it and they make their own decisions based upon what the transcripts say and what the audio has to say, because people are ultimately going to come to their own conclusion one way or another. So if you don't mind, I would like to make this available to the listeners and let them hear it for themselves.
Sure. It's not anywhere else, so you've got the scoop on it, sir.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to do that.
Joe, I'm sorry. I wanted to say one more thing, if I could.
Go ahead.
Like I was saying, so by them trying to challenge anything that's on there with these tapes, like I said, it will all come back to haunt them, and they will be caught in their web of lies. And as anybody knows, that once you're caught in one lie, your credibility is out the door, okay? So that's another reason why they're not going to even challenge us. They want this book to go away. They want us to go away. But the thing that really bothers me the most with a lot of these doubters and naysayers out there is that they want to believe that I'm making this stuff up like I have nothing better to do. Now, if I had been a celebrity such as A-Rod or somebody else of importance like that came out with these same tapes and these same allegations, I would be taken a lot seriously because of my celebrity. But because I'm an average person who is not a celebrity, people find it hard to believe. But one thing that people have to understand is I have no ulterior motive whatsoever other than to get the truth out, which I have stated since day one, and I have continually maintained for the last 2 decades. And the thing is, it should not make a difference whether or not I'm a celebrity or not, or if I'm a male or a female. But the way people are and the way they're treating this situation is because I feel, in my personal opinion, that they don't want to take it seriously because I'm a gay man. Now, if you want to use the analogy of the Bill Cosby situation, where all these women have made all these accusations against Bill Cosby, and of course for the last 2 decades they were put through the ringer and accused of every kind of thing, and nobody wanted to believe them. But meanwhile, these women didn't even have audio tapes or any proof whatsoever.
Well, that's the whole thing there, Paul. And I don't have to cut you off, and I appreciate it, guys. We're up against the clock here. And that's why I would just prefer, I want to give the people the information. I want to give the listeners the information. Let them decide for themselves. Like you said, you're not a celebrity. You're a guy telling a story. And like many of these stories, types of stories, you're going to make what you want of it. And we're going to let them go ahead and do that, thanks to you guys. And I will say this, if you have any additional tapes or any additional transcripts that you guys want to make available that you feel is pertinent here, then by all means, I hope you'll throw it our way and give us the opportunity to do what's right with it.
I believe you, Paul.
Yes. And also, Joe, what I wanted to say very quickly, too, this is not the first time that I've been mentioning this stuff. Like I said, this has been in my original deposition, which is public record.
Mm-hmm.
Has been mentioned in various newspapers throughout the course of 2 decades. It has been on various websites and blogs, and it has been written into 2 books. So this is basically repeated information.
Well, we've got the tapes now, which is kind of it's a game changer here. I mean, it's one thing to put a book out. It's a whole other thing once you listen to these tapes and follow it with the transcript. And it is a little bit mind-blowing, and I'm going to warn people. We'll make it available to them, but there is a harsh reality on these tapes that I'm hoping they're going to be ready to listen to. And again, guys, I can't thank you enough for stopping by and giving us the opportunity to be able to share this with folks. And again, any additional information that you think is pertinent here and backs up your case, and the book again is Abused by the Yankees, Gary Tushek, Paul Priore. I hope you'll give us the opportunity to work with it, and I appreciate your time here, guys. I truly do.
Thank you, Joe. Just a quick mention of the website, abusedbytheyankees.com.
Appreciate
it. The only place you can get this book.
Thank you very much, guys. Best of luck to you here, and hopefully we'll be talking again soon.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you very much for having us.
You got it. All right, there you go. I'm telling you right now, am I over exaggerating what's on this tape and what's in these transcripts here,
Not
Parker?
at all.
I mean, this is some craziness, absolute craziness.
I believe him, Joe. Google Paul Priore's name. Just Google it. And every article that comes up is a personal attack against him.
Yeah.
They're all saying he's lying, but nobody can tell you why or how or what he's lying about.
Well, we're going to go ahead and give you an opportunity to read these transcripts. We're going to go ahead and make the audio tape available. We'll let you know how we're going to do that. We'll get it up on the website. We'll let you know when you can go. Take a listen. Take a listen and take a read, and you tell me. Much like Lenny Dykstra yesterday on Garland, listen, a lot of people want to call him crazy, habitual liar and all this and that. Sometimes it's the crazy ones that maybe, just maybe, they're telling the truth. I don't know. That's for you to decide. All right. 2 hours in the books. We got another one to play with, much to cover. We got another game tonight. We've got NBA talk. We got plenty of that. We'll do that coming up. Joe Raineri, 640 Sports.
For his nostalgic